Hey everyone, it's Adam from IMAMUSICMOGUL in for output. And today I'm going to show you how to keep things interesting with your drum patterns and drum beats. Let's face it, sometimes those patterns can get a little repetitive and boring. So in this tutorial, I want to show you a couple of things you can use, little techniques you can use to sort of spice up your drum patterns and keep your listeners engaged and make them want to listen to your song over and over again. So right here, we got a simple hip hop trap pattern. Let's go ahead and hit play. So let's go ahead and start at the top with those 808s. So right here, I got a basic 808 hitting at C. So a cool little neat trick that a lot of hip hop producers usually like to do is they take their 808 and at the end of the pattern, they pitch it up one full octave and sort of let it glide from this note into the next. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this one out. Let's go ahead and hit play. You could hear how that gives it a little bit more bounce, a little bit more spice, and it's a little bit more unique than rather that straight C hitting at every single point in the track. Next, let's go ahead and focus in on our hi-hats. Right here, this is the most basic hi-hat pattern you can have. Sounds very robotic and very sort of straight to the point. So hi-hats to me are really important because it gives a lot of feel to the track, especially with today's music. So I'm going to show you a couple techniques that you can apply to your hi-hats to make it more human sounding, real sounding, and just give it a better vibe overall. So right here, we're just going to start off at the very basics and just sort of randomize the velocity on these notes. So it's not a static straight hit. So we're going to select all of our MIDI notes. We're going to go to functions. We're going to go to MIDI transform. And we're going to go to random velocity. From here, we can select the range at which we want our velocity set at. So let's go from 10 to 100. We go select and operate, and Logic will randomize those velocities at each note. It's subtle, but the change is known to the listener because it's not such a static, same velocity hit hi-hat. The next thing that I want to point out with hi-hats is that it's also fun to play with different time divisions and pitch. So what I mean by that is in a lot of music you hear today, the hi-hats kind of get pitched up and down throughout various sections of the track. So let's go ahead and just do a quick stutter hit over here and play around with both time division and pitch. So I'm going to delete this note over here. Make sure our brush tool is set. We're going to change our time division to 30-second notes. And we're going to draw in a quick stutter over here at a lower pitch. So that little stutter kind of gave you a different vibe off the bat. So let's do that again over here. Except we're going to extend it to 4 notes. Let's do another stutter over here, and we'll do the same thing on this one over here. So now we adjusted the velocity to make it more human. We adjusted the pitch to kind of give some ear candy to the listeners. And we also adjusted some of the time divisions to make it less robotic and more kind of cool sounding. If you want to go ahead and adjust the velocities manually, if you don't like the way Logic randomized it, you can click MIDI draw over here, and this will open up your controller section over here. And if we go to note velocity, which we're already on, we can go ahead and draw in our velocities manually. The last thing I like to point out on the hi-hats to keep things interesting, you could also add some swing. So if we go ahead and select these ones over here, and we can add in some swing value. Let's change our quantize to eighth notes. and adjust the swing, it's going to push it off the grid. So it's not quantized right to the grid. So you can kind of adjust and play around with the swing value. Sometimes I like just to push my strength to about 50-55%, and maybe the swing at 20. And it just gives you a little bit more of that human feel. As you can see, it's a little bit off the grid, but that off the grid kind of gives it more of a realistic feel. And the listeners like to listen to something that's more realistic than robotic, computer programmed. And last but not least, keeping things interesting is how you structure your patterns and how you arrange your patterns at that. When I first started in music, I was in the studio and a producer once told me, follow the Beatles rule, change your pattern up every 8 bars, either by adding something or removing something. So let's go ahead and duplicate this over 8 bars and then over another 8 bars. So for our drums, let's say we want to start off without our kick and 808. And then our 808 and kick will come into play here on the 9th bar. And then maybe on the 13th bar over here or the 21st bar, we're going to go ahead and add in some tension. And the way I like to add tension to my drum patterns is simply remove the claps and snares. So that just creates some tension and the listener kind of knows where the clap should go, but when it's not there, they're kind of a little bit tense to see what's about to happen in the track. See how it feels like something's about to happen? And then it goes into the drop once again. So simply removing the claps out of your drum pattern creates some nice tension in your track if that's what you're going for. So those are a couple techniques you can use to keep things interesting with your drum patterns. Again, try not to keep the same pattern for the entire track. I know there are songs on the radio today that follow that method, just have the same 8 bars over and over and over again, but sometimes it's cool to switch things up. Maybe not add things, but just remove things, and that gives the listeners a little something different to listen to as they're listening to your music. So now your drum patterns are going to be really interesting and cool for your listeners. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. We'll catch you on the next one.